Damien Klassen from Nucleus Wealth. There's more than 3 trillion in superannuation across Australia. And I just wonder whether people are actually sitting in the right funds and whether they're thinking about it the right way in the current environment. What are the things that you think are important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, there's a number of major issues I see within superannuation at the moment. And I'll start with the investment side, where I look at what other super funds are doing and what we do within our super funds. And one of the big things that you see that's flooded the industry is this big holding in unlisted assets. And a lot of this came back from Harvard and Yale ran these big endowments 20, 30 years ago and got all this great press and this huge sort of, wave of adulation for the performance they'd had, which was basically around finding these unlisted assets which had an illiquidity premium and basically saying, well, we're long-term investors, we can take that illiquidity premium and get a high return. And that was great for a number of years, but now that's actually pushed so far that everyone's got lots of them. And sometimes what they're starting to do is now explain why they can afford to pay more for some of these assets than what you'd find in the listed market. So, so that's one part of it. The other problem with unlisted assets is they're effectively valuing them within themselves, and so they're marking their own homework, and so you can run into issues where you don't actually know whether the assets, when you're buying these assets, are they at the right price or the wrong price, and you're buying them from other investors within the same super fund, and so you start to get these conflicts of interest start to appear. The other problem we see a lot in superannuation fund is they're just not transparent as to what they own. If you're lucky, you can get some top 10 holdings, but quite often, even advisors who have put hundreds of millions of dollars of client money into these super funds really struggle to find out what they actually hold within their portfolios. There was a famous case a few years ago where somebody actually took their super fund to court to try and find out how much coal they had within their portfolio. And so, that transparency is what we see ends up leading people into getting their own self-managed super fund. And that can be a good solution for some people, but the reality is it's a lot of work. Most people don't like doing one set of tax returns per year, and now getting another set of tax returns, and one where there's you have some legal liabilities as to what you need to provide every year within that fund is a step too far. And so what we think there's a scope for is something that sits in between a traditional super fund with all its assets are locked up in something that can be unlisted and not transparent at all as to what's actually in it, to another, there's a middle ground between that and doing everything yourself, where you have a manager who runs it. You can actually see everything within your portfolio. You can see where your weights are. If you feel like you need more growth because you don't agree with the manager, you can actually make those changes. But it's still run by a professional manager. You can go away on holidays. You don't have to lie awake at night and check the screens every day just to work out what's going on. And so we think there's a happy medium between where we see ourselves fitting between the traditional funds and a self-managed super fund.
Right, and that's a key point, isn't it? It's about greater transparency than perhaps many players, and by the way, fees as well as the investment portfolio itself, but also not putting huge burden on the end investor, because of course it is complicated to run the self-managed super fund, and the returns and things are getting more difficult every year, it seems to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to say, I've got a bit of spare money, I'll dabble in the stock market on the side, and it's another to say I'm going to stake my entire retirement on my ability to be watching the market and keeping up to date with whatever's going on.
Yeah, and I guess the point there we should make is that in the light of that, I formed the view that the proposition that you offer is, I think, very compelling and will in many ways meet many people's requirements beyond those which they may already have. So I've teamed up with you with regard to Walk the World Super to essentially launch a fund powered by Nucleus Wealth that you'll be running, and that allows people to access the transparency and all of the other online tools that are there, but basically making super easier and hopefully providing good returns as well.
Absolutely. So far we have, and I think ASIC's very clear about saying past performance doesn't lead to future performance. But I think what we want to make sure that we are running these lower risk strategies and giving all the transparency so that people can see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and get that comfort that really you don't get through a traditional super fund because you're told just to trust them, and it's a bit of a black box as to where the returns are coming from.
Yeah, and the onboarding process also allows people to have a look-see on the way in before they commit.
Absolutely, yeah. What we want to be able to do is give you that experience of seeing what would actually be in your portfolio. So if you want to go to a super fund at the moment and transfer your money across, they basically just say, well, give us your money, and then you can, chances are you can wait for the next annual report to find out what you've got in that portfolio. Whereas we're completely upfront. You jump in, you see a snapshot of the portfolio as it was, a couple of days before. It's not always an up to the minute, but within a couple of days, and you get to see that full transparency. And once you're on board, you can then jump in and actually see each individual stock, why we own it, and all the details behind all of the asset allocation.
And of course, you handle all the rollover processes as well to make it easier for people to come on board.
Yeah, that's right. We have the rollover process. It's all digital. We have you get insurance within it as well, and the whole sign up process. You do need to go through your 100-point IDs, but it's all online. There's no paperwork required. You can be set up within a few days and then have your money sort of transferred across from your existing super fund.
Well, Damien, I appreciate your time today. And if people want more information, they can go to walktheworld.com.au, and from there they can navigate through to Nucleus Wealth, who powers the Walk the World Super Fund.